In my heart, I believe Epstein's operation was an Israeli Mossad operation. I believe that they were using the perversions of wealthy Americans to corrupt them and to co-opt them and then to direct them. I believe this, but I can't say that it's fact. I can't say it's real. I can't say I know this to be true because I don't. So I think one of the things that Netanyahu's got going for him is that he's just been in this job forever and that he knows everybody. He knows Washington, D.C., and he knows the Washington, D.C. deep state better than Donald Trump does. And so when you're looking for predictable outcomes, even if you disagree with Benjamin Netanyahu, he provides consistency over time that allows for more predictable outcomes, as opposed to saying, okay, we're going to get rid of him, but who's going to replace them? And how do we know that the outcome will be different? And I think he has same levels of connectivity throughout Europe and the world. So Benjamin Netanyahu is a known knowable. And from Donald Trump's perspective, that's a good thing. I also think that Donald Trump is, at the end of the day, a moral and intellectual coward. He doesn't stand for anything. And if you stand for nothing except yourself, then you pick the path of least resistance to get votes and money necessary to run for office. There's an old saying, and I had a general tell me this once when I was arguing my case. He said, when you're explaining, you're losing. So if Donald Trump was a man of character and intelligence, he would feel that he had an obligation to explain to the American people why the continued Israeli occupation of Palestinian territory is morally wrong and why the United States has a moral imperative to change the outcome. You don't get elected that way. When you're explaining, you're losing. If you start explaining something, all people hear is but then somebody slides in and says, oh no, I am with Israel, 100% behind Israel. Israel is the power of good. Israel is this. And the people with the short attention spans go, yep, we're comfortable with that. That makes us feel comfortable because now you want us, after being told for how many years now that we're supposed to support Israel, you want us to come out and dump Israel and support people that you were calling terrorists, and they blow things up and they kill. And what about October 7th? You see, because the non-intellectual thinker is going to buy into the notion. They still believe that there's babies in ovens and beheaded. Anyway, they're still using that argument. There's still people out there making the argument about babies in the ovens, the beheaded, the mass rapes, the whole thing. They slaughtered those people at the festival. No, the Israelis killed over half of them. Trump is just the man who took the easiest path. And right now, supporting Israel in this country is the easiest path. It's the easiest path. It's not the right path, but it takes a man of character, man of courage to do the right thing. But now we know. We know what the war looks like. We know what it is. Israeli bombing, Iranian missiles. We know it. We saw it. It's no longer theory. It's there. We crossed that river. So it's no longer saying it's really hard to conceive Israel and Iran fighting a war. No, it's not. They did it. And we know what it will look like. And it's going to happen again. That's the other thing is unless Iran does declare a functioning, viable, deliverable nuclear weapons capability, it will be bombed again by Israel and the United States. The only way to prevent that is a nuclear weapon. I've studied the Iranian nuclear program for a long time. I'm not claiming to be the world's best expert on it. I'm sure there's other people out there better on this than me, but I think I've got a good grasp of it. And I was getting ready to make the argument that even after all of this bombing, after all of this, that Iran shouldn't be viewed as a nuclear threat, that a case can be made that we can get Iran back to where the world should want them, which is a non-nuclear weapon state. And then I reread it and I let it sit and I reread it again. I don't believe that argument anymore. It's an argument I want to believe, but as an analyst and taking a look at the things, because they've been leaning in this direction for some time now. I made a statement before the bombing that Iran was a nuclear threshold state. And I believe that statement. And I made a statement that said that if the political decision had been made, Iran was weeks away from possessing a usable nuclear weapon. Either Iran possesses a usable nuclear weapon now, several of them, or they have advanced this even further to where they have everything, they just have to assemble the weapon. I believe they're beyond the enrichment aspect of it. I don't think Iran's shuttling around 60% enriched uranium, waiting for the IAEA to come back in and confirm it. And the Iranians can get away with a whole bunch of things. For instance, they can say, where's the 60% enriched uranium? You blew it up. It's underneath Ferdo, baby. Bring in the excavators. You dig it out. But they're not even going to do that. The Iranians, the way I knew that the Iranians have made this step is the way they're treating the IAEA. There will be no more inspections. There could be visits that will be guided to where Iran wants them to go, and Iran will take them to safeguarded facilities. But all the things we're talking about aren't safeguarded facilities because they're not going to be declared, and Iran will never declare them again to the IAEA because the IAEA turns that around. What I'm saying is I can no longer say in good faith that I don't believe Iran is pursuing a nuclear weapon. The Iranians can prove me wrong, and I'm not condemning the Iranians. I'm on board with saying it is what it is, but it's a very risky thing right now. It's a very risky thing. And this is why this conversation is dangerous, because Trump is a madman, a literal madman. And if the Iranians declare a nuclear weapon, it's not ready to be used instantaneously and guaranteed outcomes, Trump will nuke them. But if the Iranians are able to say Trump can nuke the whole country and we're still taking out Israel, and there's nothing you can do to stop us, that's deterrence. I didn't want it to get to this point. I didn't believe the Iranians would be able to make that transition without being detected, because I know what the IAEA is capable of doing. But we're in a unique situation, right? There hasn't been an IAEA inspector in Iran since the war started. And the Iranians aren't sitting on their thumbs. I think Iran has made the decision that they can only exist as a nuclear weapons state. And when the time comes, Iran will make that known. But I think in order for that time to come, they need some serious upgrades to their air defense and their air capabilities. And I believe they're getting that right now from the Russians and the Chinese. I hope I'm wrong. This is why I haven't even written it. Talking to you is a risk, because as on the internet, nothing ever goes away. And so this conversation, which is an honest conversation, a heartfelt conversation, may come back and bite me in the ass, because they're going to say, you said this, that, and the other thing. There's silence about what's going on. In fact, you may have seen this. At first, I thought it was AI, but there was a member of parliament who's also a member of the security establishment who said Iran has a nuclear weapons program now. They've just come right out and said it. I'm like, that's not really the vector I want to hear it from. But you're not going to hear it from the supreme leader until in order for this to happen, Iran has to present the world with a fait accompli and say, we have a nuclear weapons capability that can destroy all of Israel and you can't interdict it. And if you try, we kill all of Israel. Israel disappears. That's the reality we're at right now. I fought this. I don't like this. I don't think it adds, but I think we've given the Iranians no choice. When we launched a strike that didn't just target their nuclear facilities, but sought to decapitate them, regime change. What choice does the regime have right now? You can't go back to the status quo. You can't go back to allowing inspectors to run around inside Iran, knowing that those inspectors in the past, having seen what they saw, turned it into targets for the Israelis. The Israelis will just bomb again if the United States won't allow what international law allows. But this is also dangerous because from a non-proliferation standpoint, this could very well lead to the proliferation of nuclear weapons in the region. That's another reason why I'm not happy about this. But I don't think the Iranians have a choice right now. They don't have a choice, because before this, when we were talking about the theoretical possibility of a war, everything has changed. Everything. Every red line that we thought couldn't be crossed was crossed. And the whole region is different now. We talked a lot about, and Professor Morandi, Iran can do a lot of damage to Israel. We all talked about that, but that was all hypothetical. Now we know it's real. We know that Iran is capable of doing a lot of damage to Israel. We know that air defense or missile defense systems don't work. We know that Iran is a hell of a lot more vulnerable to Israeli action than anybody thought they would be. We know a whole bunch of things that now allows us to put, in the past when we were trying to basically take one of those 1,000 piece puzzles and tell what it was with 15 pieces. All right, there's 15 pieces. Tell me what I'm looking at. I don't know. Yeah, I can speculate, but I don't know. It's only 15 pieces. We poured about 500 pieces on the board, and those pieces are connecting together. And I think now we're able to say, it looks like we're looking at a mountain scene with a river and a field of flowers. And that's probably what we're looking at now. There's a whole bunch more pieces of the puzzle on the table right now. And I think things are becoming much clearer. It's not a picture I wanted to see. I'm not one of these cheerleaders out there. They were like, Iran needs the bomb. The NPT no longer has any value. See, I was a big believer in the NPT. I was a big believer in international law. I was a big believer, and I still am, in the potential of it. But when the United States and Israel can get away with literal murder, with a Pearl Harbor event, with the lies, where's the shame? Telling the Iranians that we're going to have this negotiation and then allowing Israel to bomb them to try and kill the negotiating team along with the rest of. Where's the shame? No, I don't want Iran to have the bomb. I believe in getting rid of nuclear weapons, not promoting it. If this can be done in a way that the spread of nuclear capability is limited to Iran, and maybe this is what triggers Israel working on a solution to get rid of their nuclear weapons in exchange for Iran and verifying a nuclear-free zone. Okay, that's one way to get rid of the Israeli bomb. I think everybody's in agreement Israel shouldn't be allowed to have nuclear weapons. And it's a hell of the hypocrisy of saying it's okay for Israel to have it, turn a blind eye, but oh my God, if the Iranians get it. When it became clear to me the Iranians just didn't care about anything related to the inspectors, that part of their life was over and they're moving on to a new reality. Then there's no trap. Maybe it's a reverse trap. But now the Iranians have set in motion events that will inevitably lead to a military strike unless they deter it with a declared nuclear weapons capability. And I think that's the next step that's going to happen here. And I basically said that the Iranians have fallen into the inspection trap by not allowing the inspectors back in. They've set themselves up the way the Iranians set themselves, the Syrians set them up, so now they're at the mercy of inspections. The Iranian solution is to say, we don't care. We don't want them back. And we're not trying to get them back. And we're going to function without them. We no longer accept that scenario. What made inspections work with Saddam Hussein is that he wanted sanctions lifted. And the only way to get sanctions lifted was through an inspection-based outcome. The same thing with the Syrians. But the world's changed. Again, who predicted an Israeli surprise attack while the United States was negotiating? Where's the genius that said, I got that one. It's on my bingo card. Nobody predicted it. No. Nobody predicted. And when it happened, we all were doing the same thing. What? How could America do that? How could Donald Trump do that? And again, it comes back full circle. Steve Witkoff went to Russia. You got to believe in the back of the Russians' mind, it's saying, we can't trust a word you're saying. You just sent 2 frickin' submarines closer to our shore armed with Trident nuclear-armed missiles. And now you want us to listen to you as if that's all going to come up. We don't trust anything you say. That's why the Oreshnik is operational. The Oreshnik is alive. That's why Dmitry Medvedev did the unprecedented thing of talking about dead hand, even though he said maybe it doesn't exist. You don't have a former president of Russia who knows damn well that the dead hand exists mention the dead hand unless he's telling you we got the dead hand. Trump is just screwed the pooch. That's a fighter term. It's not a dirty term. It's a fighter pilot term. But he's shooting himself down. He's shooting America down. The United States already has a problem where we've allowed ideology to infiltrate foreign policy to the extent now that every president ends up getting us a knee-jerk all over the place. Trump's only around for 3 more years. And then what? So the Indians let's say Trump made me the negotiator. I went there and I found all the solutions. And I'm sitting there with the Indians. All right, this is what we're going to do. Boom, boom. And they're going to look at me and go, Scott, we think you're an honest guy. And this is a really interesting thing you've put forward here. But you work for Donald Trump and he disappears in 3 years. And what guarantees can you give me that the person that replaces Donald Trump is going to think this is a good idea? And you can't give a guarantee. I think J.D. Vance is going to be, I can't guarantee that. Can't guarantee anything in the American. And so the Indians are like, no, even though what you said sounds good, no. We're going with long-term stability. We're going with people we trust. But because everything you're doing, Scott, is going to be based upon an executive order because you're not turning it into a treaty with, and even if you did turn it into a treaty with Senate ratification, we see how the United States treats treaties. You just throw them away and they're inconvenient. And then we'll become inconvenient again. So the president will do everything based upon an executive order, which is immediately reversible the moment a new president comes in. You're right. I apologize for even injecting the possibility of America coming up with something clever. We can't, because we're the worst people in the world to deal with. We stand for nothing. We are nothing. And nobody should ever trust us. I don't think Donald Trump wakes up giving one rat's ass about the American people. He cares about Donald Trump. His administration right now is just bending over backwards to try and get him the Nobel Peace Prize. I wish we had an American president that had the discipline and the intellectual capacity and the integrity of a Vladimir Putin, and think about the general well-being of the people you're responsible for. I honestly believe when Vladimir Putin wakes up in the morning, his one driving force is, what can I do to make the life of the Russian people better? I believe it, because you take a look at how he behaves and what he does. He acts on it. He's stopped 5 wars. You know that, right? He stopped all 5 of them. All 5 of the wars. And the 6th one, the big one, is Russia, and he's going to stop that too. And God, if the Russians ever say, all right, we'll do the ceasefire if the Ukrainians do this, he's going to say, I've stopped all the wars in the world. I am the ultimate peacemaker. You must give me the Nobel Peace Prize. Forget the fact that I bombed Iran in violation of international law and that I worked with the Israelis to carry out a surprise attack against Iran. Forget that little fact. That's just, come on. 2 submarines moving to Russia? Not a big deal. He hasn't stopped any wars, not a single war. Every war he thinks he stopped is still festering. And if they stopped, it wasn't because of him. India and Pakistan didn't stop fighting because of Donald Trump. Cambodia and Thailand still are hooking and jabbing. The Cambodians might want to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, but the Thais aren't, because the Thais know the truth. There's still problems there. He talked about he sent a 3-man delegation to the Congo to try and cook up a deal between Congo and Rwanda, and they had to flee for their lives. Yeah, you stopped that war, didn't you, Donnie baby? He hasn't stopped a single war. And all he does is fuel wars. He sells weapons. The he's not just a hypocrite. He's not just a liar. He's ignorant, purely ignorant. And it's all narcissist based. This is all about Donald Trump. And my God, you have a president of the United States that is going to take all this power and just focus it on making Donald Trump seem like a great guy. $60 million worth of food to Gaza, but nobody's thanked me. Nobody's thanked me at all. Why aren't you thanking me? Why aren't you making sure the food gets to the people who need it? Somebody should thank me. This is where we're at right now. When was the last time Vladimir Putin had to go on national TV and beg people to thank him for something? Never. First of all, I think one of the reasons why J.D. Vance is laying low right now is because of the Epstein controversy. And he doesn't want, and I don't think Trump wants it to spill over on him. And so you keep the vice president out of these things. Although I guess there's a meeting right now with J.D. Vance about releasing the transcripts or the recordings of the most recent meeting between the federal deputy attorney general of the United States and Ghislaine Maxwell. So who knows? But yeah, J.D. Vance was always going to fight an uphill battle trying to become relevant under Donald Trump. Donald Trump's a narcissist. He's the only one that counts. Donald Trump doesn't share power. Donald Trump doesn't delegate. And Vance will be given an opportunity here, an opportunity there to shine. But look at Vance went to Munich and spoke to the Munich Security Council, and you have people, security conference, and you have people saying that, what a speech. That's one of the greatest speeches made in that conference since Vladimir Putin took down the House in 2007. Normally a president would say, my vice president went out there and kicked ass, and I'm very good. Trump's, you're not allowed to shine brighter than this star. So we're going to bring you back here and we're going to snuff out the light. You don't get to go out and play anymore. And that's one of J.D. Vance's problems, is that he is a tool, but the president doesn't want to give the tool credit for anything. The only good news from the Trump perspective is that the Democrats are so god awful that they, even in an environment where they should be thriving and gaining votes and having their voice heard, they're still losing popularity because they're just that bad. They're so bad that they're losing popularity at a greater rate than Donald Trump, who's very bad. Donald Trump is not a man of character. He's not a man of courage. So he's going to take the path of least resistance. And that's the mastery of AIPAC and the whole pro-Israeli lobby, is that they have made life easier for those who support the cause of Israel. And they make life harder for those who go against it. And Donald Trump is a man that believes in taking the easy path. Look at tariffs. There's no master stroke here. He's just throwing out random numbers and then changing them and going on. Not because if he truly believed in something, he could articulate the stance he believed in. He could go out there, defend it. He could withstand the opposition. But he just tells lies. I'm gonna generate enough tariff-based income to make sure that Americans who earn less than $200,000 a year don't ever have to pay income tax again. And everybody goes, really? Oh, that's it. Get back to that. Don't pay taxes again. Not anything about Israel, Gaza, and all that. We don't have to pay taxes again. This is the code that Donald Trump has broken, as he plays to the lowest common denominator, and he can shift as the days on because the political memory of these people is zero. He just has to keep saying the right words. He'll refine his message, his lies. That's where we're at. It's not that the Israeli lobby controls Donald Trump. I don't believe they do. I believe that Donald Trump is such a weak man that he takes the path of least resistance, and the Israeli lobby provides the path of least resistance.